Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, President Park Geun-hye will meet with the floor leaders of rival political parties this week to urge them to pass pending bills and settle unresolved issues. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he'll create a ministerial post to help realise his government's new security policy. The new minister will be in charge of overseeing the legislative changes needed to broaden the military's role. Plus, Israel arrests 6 Jewish suspects over the alleged abduction and killing of a Palestinian teenager in Jerusalem. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, July 7th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye will meet floor leaders of rival political parties later this week for the first meeting of its kind since President Park took office in February last year. The ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy have set the date, with officials saying it'll take place on Thursday. President Park is expected to call for bipartisan cooperation to pass pending bills, like the government reorganization proposal drawn up following the deadly Sewol-ho ferry disaster in April. She will also push for passing bills aimed at increasing social welfare and getting rid of excessive business regulations. The opposition party, on the other hand, plans to deliver its stance on the president's recent cabinet shake-up, which raised controversy over some of the nominees' alleged ethical lapses. Chinese media outlets have praised the outcome of the 2-day state visit to South Korea by Chinese President Xi Jinping that wrapped up late last week, saying it improved bilateral relations between the two countries. The state-run People's Daily devoted the 2 front pages, in fact, of its Saturday edition to President Xi's visit, which is extremely rare for the Daily. It covered all of the Chinese leader's visit, including his address to students at Seoul National University and a bilateral economic and trade forum he attended in the South Korean capital. Xinhua news agency also positively appraised President Xi's visit. It said the visit had ushered in a new era that, quote, warmed politics, pushing the economically strategic partnership to new heights. It also said the two sides reached an important consensus to promote the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Now, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has begun taking action following the announcement last week to approve a new constitutional reinterpretation that would allow the right to exercise collective self-defense, which essentially means Japan can come to the military aid of a friendly nation under attack. However, the next steps are unlikely to be smooth sailing, as our Son Jung-in reports.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has started to take follow-up steps after his decision to reinterpret the country's pacifist constitution to legally permit Japan to engage in collective self-defense. Speaking to reporters Sunday, Abe said he plans to create a new ministerial post which will be in charge of national security legislation to broaden the scope of the self-defense forces' activities. Abe said he would name the minister, who will be a person well-versed in security issues, to prepare for the large-scale legal revisions during a planned cabinet reshuffle in early September. However, Abe is facing a number of problems. First, his cabinet's approval rating slipped below 48% after its decision last week. In polls conducted by Japan's media outlets, Abe's own approval rating stood at 47.8% in early July, down from 52% in late June. It's the first time his rating has slipped below 50% since December. In addition, a lawsuit over the cabinet's decision is expected to be filed by a mayor in Mie Prefecture. Matsusaka Mayor Mitsushige Yamanaka says the move is unconstitutional. He has vowed to call on lawmakers, the heads of other municipalities, and the general public to join his initiative to promote pacifism. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
The top U.S. diplomat for East Asia says Japan will continue to play its part in international efforts to denuclearize North Korea, despite its recent thawing of relations with Pyongyang. In an interview with the Japanese daily Asahi Shimbun over the weekend, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell said Washington believes Japan will pursue its talks with North Korea over the abductee issue in a way that is responsible towards its partners in the denuclearization effort. Tokyo recently announced it would ease some sanctions on the North in return for Pyongyang reinvestigating the abductions of Japanese citizens in the 1970s and 80s. Some watchers had raised concerns the bilateral cooperation between Japan and North Korea could undermine the position of the other members of the six-party talks to resolve North Korea's missile and nuclear issues. Staying with North Korea, and Pyongyang recently held a large-scale military exercise, this off its eastern coastal city of Wonsan last Friday, using missile bases, in fact, in South Korea as virtual targets. The North Korean Central News Agency on Sunday released a photo of leader Kim Jongun observing the drill, which you can see there. A Seoul official said that during the amphibious landing exercises, Spike missile units on Baekryong-do Island and Yeongpyeong-do Islands were included as targets. South Korea has recently deployed Israeli-made Spike missiles with a range of around 20 kilometers, can launch precision strikes on the North's hidden coastal artillery. Now, for this exercise on Friday, Pyongyang mobilized an 1,800-ton Romeo-class submarine, a fire support vessel with 122mm multiple rocket launchers, hovercrafts, transport aircrafts for special commandos, and several cannons. North Korea's young leader Kim Jongun is trying various methods to keep his military in line these days, and these range from holding swimming matches for senior officers to frequent military shake-ups. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
It takes more than just military might to stay in the top tier of the North Korean Navy. What else does it take? Swimming skills, apparently. Recent photos released by the state-run Korean Central News Agency show North Korean leader Kim Jongun watching some 20 Navy officers in their 50s and 60s display their loyalty through a 10-kilometer swimming drill.
Our dear Supreme Commander said that in order for the whole military to fight well, commanders need to become fighters themselves.
The rare swimming competition, which continued throughout the night, is the latest in a series of efforts by Kim to tighten his grip over senior military officers. Kim recently launched a campaign to strengthen the discipline of high-ranking officers. In March, he looked on as Army officers carried out shooting drills, and in May, he ordered 67-year-old Vice Chief of the Army's General Staff to fly a fighter jet. But swimming matches and shootouts aren't the only ways for Kim Jongun to keep the military in line. Kim is known for his frequent replacement of officers, with the most recent being of People's Armed Forces Minister Chang Jung-nam, which experts say leaves no one with a sense of security in their position. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, staying with North Korea, and Pyongyang has around 3,000 more cyber warfare personnel than they had 2 years ago, for a team of nearly 5,900, this according to an unnamed military source. Now, that might not seem like much when compared to the 80,000 cyber operations personnel in the US, but if you put the number of elite hackers side by side, then Pyongyang surpasses Washington 1,200 to 900. North Korea trains some 100 cyber warriors per year at Mirim University, which was founded all the way back in 1986. In contrast, South Korea, often the target of such cyber attacks, only has around 400 professionals in its cyber command to guard against such aggressions.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, for some economic news, all eyes will be on the Bank of Korea in the coming week to see whether it will cut the country's growth rate forecast, but also the interest rate, this amid the sluggish global and domestic recovery. But as our Kim Jongun reports, cutting the interest rate could actually make things worse.
The Bank of Korea is expected to slash the country's growth rate forecast by up to 0.2 percentage point to 3.8 or 3.9% this Friday. If that happens, it could be a sign that the central bank will lower the nation's key interest rate, which has stayed at 2.5% for more than a year. This comes as major financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund are expected to cut their growth projections for the global economy from the current 3.6%. A move like that would be sure to affect the export-driven Korean economy, which is struggling amid a slow economic recovery in the U.S. and sluggish domestic consumption following the Sewol-ho ferry incident. Korea's mining and manufacturing industry shrank by 2.7% in May from the previous month, the sharpest reduction since December 2008. However, some say cutting the interest rate now could actually send the ominous message about the Korean economy. An analyst from Hanyang Securities told KBS News that the Korean central bank should cut the interest rate at least twice to boost liquidity in the nation's economy. The analyst said that if the Bank of Korea were to cut the interest rate to 2%, the rate during the global financial crisis, it could prompt major participants in the Korean economy to save capital rather than expand their investments. This is the opposite of what the Korean government wants them to do. And this is why the world's top investment banks and local financial institutions think the Bank of Korea will want to keep the interest rate the same until the end of the year. And some, including Barclays and Morgan Stanley, have even predicted the central bank will actually raise the interest rate in the third or fourth quarter. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
Korea could soon see a rise in outbound shipments of rice to China. The Agriculture Ministry said Sunday that it will be willing to increase rice imports to China once it has settled the matter of tariffs for rice imports to Korea. The ministry said it's still working to set the tariffs for rice imports amid larger efforts to solidify its position on rice market liberalization. Now, China currently allows some imports of Korean rice, citing a continuation of testing for pests and disease. Korea was allowed to delay the opening of its rice market under an agreement with the World Trade Organization that's set to expire at the end of this year. Now, noise-induced hearing loss is becoming increasingly more prevalent here in Korea. There have been a number of discoveries and advances that have increased our understanding of this kind of hearing loss, but an effective cure has yet to be developed. But researchers here in Korea say they may have an answer. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Lee Chang-gon has worked in an engine room for over 30 years, something that has had a definite effect on his hearing. He complains of his ears ringing and he cannot make out little sounds.
I feel slightly deaf. It also feels like there's something in my ear. I can't hear quiet noises.
He is being diagnosed with noise-induced hearing loss, a condition where cilia inside the ear becomes damaged and cannot pick up sound. And with more and more people listening to music through earphones, the number of younger patients, those from 10 to 19 years of age with a hearing impairment, has jumped nearly 30% in just 5 years. Making matters worse, once the symptoms start, it may be too late.
Noise-induced hearing loss refers to a condition when the functions of the cochlea deteriorate. Once it's damaged, it's hard to recover.
However, local researchers have found that a substance used in asthma medication may help. In this experiment, the researchers exposed a mouse to 112 decibels of noise for 3 hours and observed changes in its cilia. They found that an infectious substance that causes asthma becomes active when exposed to noise and increases the number of enzymes that damage the cilia. The researchers then injected asthma medication into the mouse and found that the damage to the cilia was minimized.
When exposed to noise, an enzyme known as MMP3 is released, and this can lead to hearing loss. The asthma treatment showed a protective response.
When the specific substance is extracted from the asthma treatment, the researchers say it can be made into new medication that can prevent noise-induced hearing loss from worsening. The findings have been published in the U.S. journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Monday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark. A court in Jerusalem has released a Palestinian-American teenager who was allegedly beaten while in Israeli police custody. No charges have been filed against him, but he was conditionally released to 9 days of house arrest. The U.S. is calling for a full investigation. Here's Connie Kim with the story.
This video footage taken during Palestinian demonstrations Thursday appears to show 2 Israeli policemen ruthlessly kicking and punching a person. The person has been identified as Palestinian-American 15-year-old Tariq Kadir, who was at a demonstration protesting the death of his 16-year-old cousin, Mohammed Abu Kadir, who was abducted by Israelis and killed on Wednesday. Autopsy results have revealed the 16-year-old was burned alive. He is believed to have been the victim of a revenge killing for 3 murdered Israeli teenagers whose bodies were found June 30th. Israeli police say Tariq was among those attacking police officers during the protest. Photos taken of Tariq when he was taken into custody show how brutally the teenager was beaten. His face is severely bruised and swollen.
This boy, 15 years old, he's a dangerous? What, he has in his hand a gun? You found a gun or you found a rock? Why you hit a boy, 15 years old, in this way?
Yes, it did go through my head that he could have been murdered like his cousin.
The U.S. State Department has called for a swift investigation into the incident, saying it is profoundly troubled by reports a teen was beaten while in police custody and condemning any excessive use of force. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And in regards to the death of his cousin last week, 16-year-old Mohammed Abu Kadir, Israel has arrested 6 Jewish suspects in his abduction. They are being questioned by the country's Shin Bet security agency. Turning now to other news now, dozens have been killed in the East African country of Uganda, where Ugandan forces say they repelled an uprising by tribal militias. It happened in 3 oil-rich districts bordering Congo, where tensions had been rising over land rights. The area is believed to hold as much as 3.5 billion barrels of crude. The attacks began on Saturday when armed rebels stormed army and police stations. By Sunday, at least 41 rebels were reported to have been killed and 20 arrested. The tribal militia have killed at least 12 people, including 3 policemen. More army reinforcements have been sent to the region. Turning now to the insurgency in Ukraine, pro-Russian separatists are regrouping in the industrial city of Donetsk after being driven out of their stronghold in Sloviansk over the weekend. On Saturday, Ukrainian troops pushed the rebels out of the city of 100,000, marking a gain by Kiev in the months-long conflict. Defense Minister of the separatist republic Igor Girkin appeared in a TV interview on Sunday and promised to continue combat operations and avoid mistakes of the past. Ukrainian authorities say he is a veteran of the Russian military intelligence agency. Fighting also continues in the neighboring region of Luhansk, which, like Donetsk, sits along the border with Russia. And finally, a video purporting to show the leader of the self-dubbed Islamic State has surfaced. And if true, it would be a very public debut for a man known to be extremely secretive. The 22-minute video posted on websites and social media showed the alleged Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi leading prayers at Iraq's Great Mosque in the northern city of Mosul. The man called on all Muslims to follow him and the caliphate in Iraq and Syria, saying those who do not obey will be regarded as sinners. Iraqi security officials are working to determine the authenticity of those claims.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off in the K-League Classic as the season resumed after the World Cup. And on Sunday, Sangju pulled off a 2-1 victory over Incheon United. So let's take a look at the highlights between Ulsan Hyundai Tigers and Seongnam FC. Now, both sides very aggressive from the start, but the first half still ends in a 0-0 draw. But the second half, a different story as Ulsan gets on the score sheet first thanks to Yoo Jun-soo sends one past the goalkeeper as Ulsan takes a 1-0 lead. Clock winding down as Seongnam continues to get aggressive, and it pays off in the 82nd when Hwang Hee-jo scores the equalizer as both sides end with a point each with a 1-1 draw. And staying with football, but over to the Brazil World Cup, where after another exciting quarterfinals, we now have our 4 nations advancing to the next round. So let's take a look at how the bracket looks so far. Of course, taking a look here, Brazil beating Colombia 2-1 over the weekend. They face off against Germany, who beat France 1-0. But Brazil without Neymar because of the big injury and also without Thiago Silva due to the yellow card accumulation. Meanwhile, Argentina headed to their first semis in 24 years as they're now set to face off against the Netherlands, who barely advanced after beating Costa Rica in penalty shootout. And now moving on to some Sunday's KBO action, we had 2 games rain out as the NC Dinos and the LG Twins were canceled, as well as the SK Wyverns and the Lotte Giants due to the rain down south. Meanwhile, the Samsung Lions hang on to beat the Tucson Bears 7-4. Now let's take a look at the highlights between the Kia Tigers and the Nexen Heroes. Now, first inning of the game, Kia strikes first thanks to Lee Bum-ho's RBI double to right field, and Kia is up 1-0. Second inning, Nexen answers back with Yoon Sung-min going deep to right center, and we're tied 1-1. Third inning, get that run back, says Lee Bum-ho, drills this one to deep left, and the Kia Tigers are up again 2-1. But wait, fifth inning, Yoo Han-jun with 2 men on, going, gone, a 3-run shot, and Nexen takes the lead 4-2. Ninth inning, Nexen up 5-2, Lee Bum-ho with 2-run single to left. He has 4 RBIs in this game, but not enough as the Nexen Heroes hang on to win this game 5-4, your final score. And now finishing things off at the Wimbledon as Petra Kvitova played her match of her life to easily beat Eugenie Bouchard in straight sets 6-3, 6-0 for her second Grand Slam on Saturday. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the men's final, which took place on Sunday between Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. Now, Djokovic desperate for a Grand Slam title as both players go at it from the start with an epic back-and-forth match. Despite Federer taking the first set, Djokovic composes himself and plays an amazing match, beating Federer in 5 sets 6-7, 7-9, 6-4, 7-6, 7-4, 5-7, 6-4 as the Serb takes home the trophy. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, for today, we'll get a relief from the monsoon rain, so we can expect to have another mostly to partly sunny day, while the southern provinces will see clouds hanging around throughout the day. It will be a hot and humid day for upper regions, and Seoul will rise to 32 degrees Celsius. So it will be hotter than yesterday, so be sure to have items to keep you cool in hot weather. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul is starting out at 22, then the high in the capital will rise to 32, while Daegu and Gwangju will have a daily high of 28, and Busan should make it to 26 later on. Now for other regions, it seems like down on Jeju and Daejeon should see a high of 26 and 30 respectively, and Dokdo will reach 25. Now, powerful tropical cyclone typhoon Noguri is estimated to impact Okinawa, Japan with a very strong intensity within the next 2 days. And Korean Peninsula, especially regions down south, could be affected. And of course, Arirang's Weather Center will be sure to keep you updated on the track of the typhoon. Well, that's all for now, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Gian, and those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.